kneeboard?
That might need.
Oh, you got.
He has one.
I need a
You
pencil.
got his.
A what?
Pencil or pen.
Okay.
It's got to come out of
We'll
this
get you
kneeboard.
It's hard to tell whether it's the environmental lights or it's actually the payload station.
Excellent.
Oh,
Just
somebody
one?
just came in and
Just
moved
one's
it,
fine.
which was great.
There's another one if you need it. Just put that in a shoulder pocket.
Just for now, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. You got it. And your comments good?
Yes, thanks.
All right. Very
You
good.
guys
You
hear me
got
okay?
your flight data file?
Got you loud and clear,
Nice.
Rex.
I know I haven't seen that at all. It should be outside still. Yes, we have both sitting on the table.
All right, Rex, you're all ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, Juan, we are ready. Hey, you guys got to get on that. We're all ready.
Okay.
That's the seat because I can't go the other way around. Okay. Thank you. John's so funny.
They can take one back to audit, right? What time do you need for that?
About a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes.
That's it. Push it. All right, super speed back east lane.
Take it back.
We see the 2234 on board. We'd also like you to pick up the payloads. You can restring at the Ops 3 transition per the cue card.
Matt, done.
All right. Thank you.
That's my fault.
No, good so far, man.
All right, here's the
kind of nice.
Ops 301 Pro.
We
Is
didn't
string
have
one
any
still
audio,
down? Just
String one is gonna be is back now, Mike. Okay.
But when we had, I had it for 126, and I think I had good luck with him. 'Cause I don't remember having issues with him. Because, or if there were, they were very minor.
They haven't even travel height. Have a warning. Moving a hardware obstacles may cause pinching and injury, pushing away suffer injury pain. Caution, OTS jack screw mechanisms at EO2 and EO3.
It's a beautiful day for it too. Guess you guys have certain weather requirements. We're gonna stop 40 hours outside of the
Bigger problem, Mom.
Agree or two on that. He said the ideal. But other than that,
Sign up on waiting list here at Sandy's.
Catching up. Pick up the pace. Come on, come on, come on. Right behind you.
Start and stabilize. Yeah, really not.
I've got one medium person that cannot make it. He's going downstairs. These folks are walking towards you. They're on the 5th left. Like I told you, over. We've got everything. The elevators won't work, and we found a staircase on the 5th level. We're walking up.
fact is that we have this vehicle behind us, and we've had it working for us for 30 years. And we're going to look upon this final mission as a celebration of all that the Space Shuttle has accomplished over its 30-year lifespan. Of course, in this past one-third of its flights, it was busy building the International Space Station, and without the Space Shuttle, we wouldn't have that.
Hi, everybody. Just want to echo Chris's remarks. Thanks for coming, and we're really looking forward to the mission. To my left is Sandy Magnus, our Mission Specialist 1. She's got a PhD from Georgia Tech. She's flown 3 times.
It's always spectacular to see the orbiter come out of the VAB. It looks so tiny, but it's really quite massive, and it's very majestic. So we're really happy to be here.
It's a great pleasure to be here and to see our vehicle roll out to the launch pad. It's just a tremendous sight. It really brings it home that, hey, this is real. It also brings it home just how big that spacecraft is. So it's a pleasure to be here, and we want to thank all the folks from the Kennedy Space Center who got it to this point to get it ready to roll out to the pad.
We're going to look now at some video of the rotating service structure, the gantry being pulled back from around Space Shuttle Atlantis yesterday afternoon. That occurred at 2:38 p.m. in conditions not unlike what we have at the moment. It was cloudy with some showers. And altogether it took about a half an hour to move the rotating service structure back into the fully parked position. Rotating service structure is the gantry that surrounds the space shuttle when it's on the launch pad. It provides access to the space shuttle and particularly to the payload bay so that the payload can be installed into the orbiter. And as well, it is also the weather protection for the shuttle while it's on the launch pad. The rotating service structure is 130 feet in height and rotates a third of a turn away from the shuttle before launch. Once the payloads are in the payload change-out room with a rotating service structure, they can be installed into the orbiter with a telescoping device called the payload ground handling mechanism. This also has 5 levels of access platforms that extend inside the payload bay of the shuttle to provide working access to the payloads. And the shuttle, as we see it there, weighs about 4,500,000 pounds. And once the orbiter is on its own and comes back for a landing, it'll weigh only about 6% of what it weighed at launch.
Time momentarily, and we're just about ready to begin the tanking operation where we chill down or cooling of the pipes. It will carry the 535,000 gallons of liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen to Atlantis' external fuel tank. That is the official kickoff of tanking process. You can see the pumps related to the liquid oxygen side of the fueling process starting to spin up. Currently, they're calling for a 30% chance of good weather for this morning's targeted liftoff by the book on schedule at 2:01 a.m. Eastern. You can see the spinning pumps, part of the liquid. And we're now back live looking at Launch Pad 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. What you're looking at is what's known as the flare stack. That burns off the excess hydrogen gas. It goes through the, if you've been following the Space Shuttle program in the past year or so, you've heard this particular acronym used before, the GUP, the Ground Umbilical Carrier Plate. This particular interface between a venting hydrogen pipe that takes this excess hydrogen that comes off during the tanking process. As more liquid hydrogen is pumped into that portion of the tank, the excess gas is funneled out through this pipe and is sent to the flare stack, where it's burned off much like an oil refinery burns off at the excess gas. We use the flare stack to burn off the excess hydrogen safely, about 750 feet from the pad. Of course, during the daytime, it's much more difficult to see, but in overnight hours like this, we get the question a lot that the fire is out at the launch pad. And in this case, it's a very good thing. We want that fire there. It's a controlled burn that allows us to make the shuttle and the launch pad actually safer. Final inspection team is a 7-person crew that evaluates the external tank under cryogenic conditions. Now that those 2 supercold propellants are loaded into the external tank, I'm looking for any frost or ice that could possibly build up and be a debris source during launch. And they look at, of course, anything else that could be amiss out there at the launch pad. Team plans to take about 2 hours to perform its inspections, and which of course begin at the pad surface and then move up to the top to the 255-foot level, and then proceed down the fixed service structure of the pad to the 215-foot level, the 195-foot level, which is where the astronaut walkway, orbiter access arm, where the crew enters the hatch and gets into Atlantis. And where
here they come. Crew going down the elevator where they'll be greeted by employees from Kennedy Space Center and members of the news media. This is the same elevator that's been used by the astronauts ever since Apollo.
Gear and on their hats and things like that. And number 1 is called the OVCC, Orbital Vehicle Closeout Chief. He's been the crew lead, has 28 years on this team. This is an incredibly experienced and dedicated team that gets the people on the orbiter, and Travis is in charge of the whole thing. And not only is he in charge of this one, but he's in charge of the whole closeout crew. We can see here Chris Ferguson getting put into his seat. And the folks that are helping him get into his seat there are number 2. If you can see the number 2 on him is Randy Brezhnik. He's actually a Marine Corps colonel. He's one of our astronauts. You can see him in the one screen. And you'll see a real good shot of that right here. You'll see him connected into the straps that Chris is already into, that he came in with his chest strap and everything. So that gets connected there. And they're essentially doing all these connections to make sure he's nice and snug in there and all ready to go. Absolutely, and there's a reason we do that. For the Terminal Countdown Demonstration Test, TCDT, when they come out, we actually have, through the years, taken many things off of the launch flow and moved them into that flow, so they didn't have to do so many things before launch. It used to be that launch was as packed as that, and we just learned that, especially with post-Columbia, the crews have so much to do on flight day 1 and flight day 2 with the inspections and everything else that it's just critical that we send them up there relaxed and with a little bit extra sleep. So we've really tried to scrub the launch timeline to take out anything that's unnecessary. So what we're left with is practice STA flights, shuttle training aircraft flights for the pilot and commander, some briefings that they have to do. The crew will normally go out and check out all their computer lines that are set up. It's called the pre-wiring, that they set up all their computers and cameras and things like that. They'll go out and check that. But other than that, we try to give them free time. Mid-deck is actually done in less time than the flight deck does, and they're concurrent. So it's a little bit odd. You think, okay, there's only 4 people. It's going to take, 25, 30 minutes because there's less people. But really, it takes the same amount of time because this is the timeline, the flight deck, and how long it takes to get those 4 folks strapped in is what drives the time.
They're having all 4 crew members on the flight.
Those are actually by size. Each crew member picks what size they want that headrest to be, and it depends on how high they want their head up. If you didn't have that at all, you'd actually be holding your head up the entire 2 or 3 hours before launch, which would be incredibly painful. But they get to pick how big they want that headrest to be. Everybody has a lumbar support. It's hard to see here, but there's a little black tube down by Doug's right hip. It's a little black bladder that you can see in your hand. He would take that and squeeze that up, and you can actually get lumbar support from that. You can reach down to the seat pan and pull yourself down a little bit, which is good. There's a monkey bar that's right above Drew's head. It's about directly in front of Doug. He's actually almost looking at it right now, where you can pick yourself up and move yourself around. The other thing that we do for comfort that's the absolute best thing we can do, and we'll see this a little bit later with Fergie, is once you get your helmet on and your gloves on and your suit is completely one piece, so it's all sealed, then you can pump air into your suit. And what that does is it gets all the wrinkles out of your suit. Because right now, the way Doug's sitting, when you lay down, obviously there's extra material. It all gets kind of lumpy, and you can get folds. And if you get a fold underneath you, that can be very uncomfortable. So we actually can pump pressure into the suits and over-pressurize them so you kind of look a little bit like the Michelin Man. And that gets all, because it's very important in many cases to have a timer going from the start of a problem to when you fix it. So there's a lot of things that you're doing there. So Chris is over there getting his nest all built while we finish Doug up on the right side.
And all those items are already on board when he gets on board?
They're all on board when he gets there, and they're either waiting for him on Velcro and he just moves them around, or once he's on, Randy will hand them to him. And Randy's got him sitting down there on the bottom, and he'll actually hand those things to him and make sure that they're all ready to go. So in some cases, there will be things that they have in their pockets. That's usually not the case, but sometimes they'll have a thing or two in their pocket to carry up there with them that they put up. And they bring the last checklist out with them because they actually have a checklist when they have the pre-flight weather brief that happens right before they suit up. That's the last thing before they suit up. So those actually come out with Randy after the crew.
I understand you to say earlier that even though there's only 4 crew members, that because of the way the process works, it's not going to take any less time to get everybody on board. Is that what you were saying?
It's not going to take any less time to get folks on board. That's because whenever you watch a strap in, the timing is all set by the flight deck, because you've got 4 people instead of 3 downstairs and so much less room. Like downstairs, there's so much room to get people in. It's easy to move around, much easier to do things. You can see how cramped it is up here. I mean, it's very hard not to bang your head on things and bang your hand on things. And of course, there's 400 plus switches that you could hit, none of which you want to. They're all right now, they're safed or they're covered, and that's one of the things you'll see Randy do later is he'll be taking the cover off the most critical switches, because we make sure they've got covers on them when the crew goes in. There's plexiglass covers that cover panels, there are switch protectors that cover panels, and those will all get taken out by Randy. But you have to be very careful on the flight deck and be very deliberate about your motions so you don't hit any of these switches, you don't knock something at the wrong time. And so you'll see that, like Drew right now, his head jammed all the way up against the front cockpit panel there, and he's got to watch his head as he does all of these things, but at the same time you have to get the job done. So it's very difficult to do, and that's why the flight deck takes so much time, and really the mid deck happens during the flight deck. And so it's time that you don't, right now we don't have anybody doing it, but we don't need them. For Fergie and Doug, they're both completely strapped in. They're doing well. They're actually talking with each other. You can kind of see, making sure their checklists are all set. Pilot and Commander are a very close-knit team, getting everything done with their mission specialist number 2. So they're making sure all their checklists are all set to go, all their gear's in the right place. Everything's all good to go for launch.
The White Room crew doing a quick sayonara here. We did want to catch that. And that's a final goodbye from our closeout crew. We did want to catch that since that was going on. But anyway,
And attention all personnel, this is the NTD conducting the launch status check. Verify ready to resume count and go for launch. OTC.
OTC is go.
TBC.
Tank and booster go.
PTC.
PTC is go.
LPS.
LPS is go.
Houston flight.
Houston flight, if you pull me at the end, I would appreciate it. Stand by.
Yes, sir, we'll pull you later. Mila.
Milo is go.
STM. STM is go. Safety console.
Safety console is go.
SPE.
SP is go.
LRD. LRD is go. SRO.
SRO is go. You have a range clear to launch.
And CDR.
CDR is go.
And Launch Director NTD, our launch team is ready to proceed with the exception of Flight, who still needs a little bit more time to make his evaluations on RTLS weather.
I copy that. I'll do my poll at this time. KC Chief Processing Engineer, verify no constraints to launch.
No constraints.
Thank you, Steve. KC Safety and Mission Assurance.
Safety and Mission Assurance is go, Mike.
Thank you, Terry. Payload Launch Manager.
Hey, Mike, on behalf of the ISS Ground Processing Team, I want to say thanks to you and the shuttle team. It's been a great partnership, and we are go.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. Range weather.
Launch weather has no constraints for launch.
Thank you, Kathy. Atlantis Flow Director.
On behalf of the Atlantis and KSC Shuttle Processing Team, we are go.
Thank you, Angie. Ops Manager.
See, Mike, waiting to get final go from Flight here. Let's hear what he says, and we'll get back to you.
Copy that. Atlantis Launch Director, Air to Ground 1.
Atlantis, go.
Okay, Fergie, we're starting to feel pretty good down here on the ground about this one today. So on behalf of the greatest team in the world, good luck to you and your crew on the final flight of this true American icon. And so for the final time, Fergie, Doug, Sandy, and Rex, good luck, Godspeed, and have a little fun up there.
Hey, thanks to you and your team, Mike. Until the very end, you all made it look easy. The shuttle's always going to be a reflection of what a great nation can do when it dares to be bold and commits to follow through. We're not ending the journey today, Mike. We're completing a chapter of a journey.
The potential that there would be light precip if we ended up in an RTLS, they've looked at that. Chances of thunder showers are very low, and I believe that's an acceptable risk. We have plenty of energy. We only need one end of the runway on the RTLS. I think we got some sound rationale here to take that waiver on the RTLS forecast being no-go. So with that, we are clear, no working, no issues. Your go to launch.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. And Fergie, you heard those words, so we'll get you going here shortly. Good luck, guys.
Fantastic news. Thanks, Mike.
NTD with that, your launch Atlantis.
I copy that, sir.
Going here shortly. Good luck, guys.
Fantastic news. Thanks, Mike.
NTD with that, you are clear to launch Atlantis.
I copy that, sir. Thank you.
We'll pick up the countdown in 15 seconds. Picking up in 10 seconds.
The countdown clock will resume on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
T-minus 9 minutes and counting.
TLS auto sequence has been initiated.
Ground launch sequencer will be checking over 1,000 parameters between now and when it hands off to Atlantis' onboard computers at T-minus 31 seconds. And from 31 seconds on, Atlantis' onboard computers will be completely in control of the countdown and for main engine start. And it will assess in the last 6.6 seconds whether the engines are up to full thrust.
TLT, OTC, connect essential buses to fuel cells per your checklist.
TLT and work. OTC, TLT, that's complete.
Copy.
In about 20 seconds, we'll be retracting the crew orbiter access arm.
free track.
Atlantis, this is OTC. This day has been over 30 years in the making. There have been many fabulous missions throughout the years. On behalf of KSC launch teams past and present, we salute the entire astronaut corps for their dedication, not only for our expanded knowledge of the universe, but for the improvement you have contributed to on Earth. Have an excellent mission and Godspeed.
Fantastic words, Roberta. Thank you very much. Great to your team. Thank you, sir.
It's Orbiter Test Conductor Roberta Wyrick from United Space Alliance. At T-minus 5 minutes, the pilot will be instructed to start the orbiter auxiliary power units.
JRPS OTC, start APU display recorders.
This JRPS, recorders are running.
PLT OTC, perform APU pre-start.
Pre-start work. OTC, TLT, 3 gray talkback.
Copy, 3 gray talkback.
Coming up on T-minus 5 minutes in 3, 2, 1, T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
Orbiter APU start.
PLT OTC, perform APU start. CDR OTC, reconfigure heaters.
That's in work.
Solid rocket booster safe and arm devices are now being armed.
OTC, PLT, 3 good APUs.
Copy, 3 good APUs.
Next milestone is a check of the orbiter's flight controls.
TLS is go for purge sequence 4.
And there will be a steering check of Atlantis' 3 main engines. Verifying now that the main engines are in their start position.
TLS is go for ET LO2 pressurization.
Starting now the retraction of the gaseous oxygen vent arm, the vent hood.
TLT OTC, clear caution warning memory. Verify no unexpected errors.
Fuel cells going to internal. External tank camera being activated at this time.
OTC, PLT, no unexpected errors.
Copy that. Flight crew, OTC, close and lock your visors and initiate O2 flow.
That's in work.
T-minus 2 minutes.
GLS is go for ET, LH2 pressurization.
Solid rocket booster camera is being activated. T-minus
30 seconds.
Sound suppression water system is being armed. T-minus 1 minute. But oxygen and liquid hydrogen fill and drain valves are closed. T-minus 40 seconds, handing off to Atlantis' computers at T-minus 31. T-minus 35, 33.
Clock will hold at T-minus 31 seconds due to a failure.
And we have had a failure. Granulate sequencer.
We had a problem on the dock's retract switches. NTDSP. Go ahead. Yes, sir. We need guys to go do the verification per the LCC, please.
All right, CMAC? Yes, CMAC. The LCC says we need to verify using a camera, and we're positioning camera 62 right now.
Okay, let us know as soon as 62 is swung over and you can verify LCC for GVA retract, please.
And all personnel, we're holding here at 31 seconds while we get a verification that the GVA has fully retracted per our pre-plan. This is CMAC. We verify retracted. Okay, and you can verify that it is fully retracted per the instructions that we've been that we developed, correct? That's correct. All right, and SPE?
And NTD, SPE concurs. They satisfy the requirements of GSC 13 pre-plan contingency. I am go.
Okay, I copy. And launch director?
Yes, sir. I heard all that and concur. Press on.
All right, very good.
NTD, SPE?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I need concurrence to GLS and mass to clear the hold, please.
Very good. And GLS, you have concurrence? Go.
Copy that. It's in work.
Thank you. Let us know when that's complete.
NTD, we have it in work.
All right, guidance.
And just a reminder for folks, our lock turn back hold time is 3 minutes and 16 seconds.
NTD, CTLS on 212. We're ready to go.
All right, very good. And launch director, with that cleanup, we're going to go ahead and proceed.
Yes, sir. Please do.
All right. And all personnel, we are going to pick up the clock here momentarily. And GLS, you can resume the clock on your mark.
Copy that. Countdown clock will resume on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
T-minus.
Go for auto sequence start.
Handoff to Atlantis' computers has occurred. Solid rocket booster nozzle steering check and work.
20.
Firing chain is armed.
15.
Go for main engine start. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. The final liftoff of Atlantis on the shoulders of the space shuttle. America will continue the dream.
Roger roll, Atlantis.
Houston now controlling the flight of Atlantis. The space shuttle spreads its wings one final time for the start of a sentimental journey into history. 24 seconds into the flight, roll program complete. Atlantis now heads down, wings level on the proper alignment for its 8.5-minute ride to orbit. 4.5 million pounds of hardware and humans taking aim on the International Space Station. 40 seconds into the flight, the 3 liquid fuel main engines throttling back to 72% of rated performance in the bucket, reducing stress on the shuttle as it goes transonic for the final time. Engines now revving up, standing by for the throttle up call.
Atlantis, go at throttle up, no action, DPDT.
Go with throttle up, no action on DPDT.
That call from Capcom Barry Wilmore, a transducer, instrumentation only, no action required. Atlantis now 15 miles in altitude, already 16 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, 1 minute 40 seconds into the flight. Atlantis flexing its muscles one final time. Atlantis traveling almost 2,600 miles an hour, 21 miles in altitude, 24 miles downrange, standing by for solid rocket booster separation. Booster officer confirms staging a good solid rocket booster separation. Guidance now converging. The main engine steering the shuttle on a pinpoint path to its preliminary orbit. 2 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight. Atlantis already traveling 3,200 miles an hour, 35 miles in altitude, 50 miles downrange. The propulsion officer reports the orbital maneuvering system engines have ignited. Atlantis kicking on its afterburners for 1 minute, 23 seconds for the final phase of powered flight.
Atlantis, 2-engine TOW.
However, Atlantis' 3 engines performing perfectly. 4 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight. Atlantis currently traveling 5,500 miles an hour, 62 miles in altitude, almost 200 miles downrange. 4 minutes of powered flight remaining. Atlantis speeding straight as an arrow toward its date with the International Space Station Sunday morning. Coming up on the 5-minute mark. Atlantis now traveling 6,500 miles an hour, 66 miles in altitude, 250 miles downrange.
Atlantis, press to ATO.
Press to ATO.
That call indicating we can make minimal orbital targets in the event of an engine failure. All three engines continue to function normally. Atlantis will begin its slow roll to a heads-up position shortly. Five and a half minutes into the flight. Atlantis traveling 7,700 miles an hour, 315 miles downrange.
Atlantis, single engine, ops 3.
Single engine, ops 3.
And the guidance officer here in Mission Control confirms that the computers are commanding the main engines to swivel.
Zaragoza, 104.
Single engine, Zaragoza, 104.
We've rolled to a heads-up position now, providing better communications to the tracking and data relay satellite system as Atlantis heads uphill. 6 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight.
Atlantis, press to MECO.
Press to MECO.
That call indicates that we can make our normal orbital cutoff targets in the event of an engine failure. However, all three main engines continue to function normally.
Nominal. Fergie, go the plus X, go the pitch.
Nominal shutdown plan, go for the plus X, go for the pitch.
That call indicating that we will be in good shape for the orientation of Atlantis for external tank photography following main engine cutoff. Now 7 minutes into the flight. One minute, 20 seconds till main engine cutoff. Atlantis traveling 12,000 miles an hour. The main engines will soon be throttling down once again to limit the stress on the shuttle and its 4 crew members to that of 3 times the effective gravity. Atlantis currently traveling at a speed of more than 4 miles a second. 1 minute of powered flight remaining for Atlantis. Three good main engines, 3 good auxiliary power units, 3 good fuel cells. Approaching the 8-minute mark into the flight. Atlantis now traveling more than 15,000 miles an hour. Eight minutes, 15 seconds into the flight, standing by for main engine cutoff. That'll be followed a few seconds later by the separation of the external fuel tank. Booster officer confirms main engine cutoff. For the last time, the space shuttle's main engines have fallen silent as the shuttle slips into the final chapter of a storied 30-year adventure. Now standing by for external tank separation. Atlantis off the tank. Commander Chris Ferguson will be maneuvering Atlantis now into an orientation to enable Sandy Magnus to capture digital still imagery of the external fuel tank as it drifts away.
OHMS 1 is not required. Your preliminary OHMS 2 TIG, 37 minutes.
37 minutes, no OHMS 1 required, thanks.